All right, welcome to Bacon Buddies, everybody. My name is Chad.
My name is Marlo, and we're with the podcast starting a day where everything is on the table.
Absolutely, Bacon Buddies, everything is on the table. And we got our good friend with us here, Edward Olive. Edward helped us get this podcast started.
Yeah.
Tell us about that initial call to Edward, Marlo, that you made to get the podcast going.
So when Chad and I started the idea of the podcast, we didn't really know anything about it. I mean, we didn't know how it worked, how to start it. Yep, absolutely. So I called Edward Olive with the University of Mount Olive and was like, hey, we want to start a podcast. Can you help me? I mean, can the university help? And did y'all have any,
Because we wanted to be together. Right?
Yep.
We got to be together to record this so we can bounce off each other and have some good energy.
Yeah. And then Edward was like, well, actually, we have a podcast room. So here we are at the University of Mount Olive with Edward in the podcast room.
Yeah. And it was a learning experience for me. Marlo called and I said, well, let me check with IT. Excuse me. And IT said, we've got a video conference room that we use for a lot of events like this, a lot of virtual events if we're doing Zoom meetings and that kind of stuff. And they said, but we got the perfect place if you want to do a podcast. So this is awesome. Yeah. This is really cool. They've used it mainly for some instructional videos. This is part of the Teaching Excellence Center. So they use it for instructional videos for our faculty and students. But this is the first official podcast that's being recorded in here. So, this is awesome, Bacon Buddies. That is awesome.
Yeah. And look, thanks to everybody that's been listening so far. Please, if you get anything out of the podcast, if we make you laugh or make you cry, share it with your friends and family. We're trying to get this thing off the ground and grow it a little bit. I think last week we had 62 downloads on the Sweet Potato Preacher, Kim Carnegie. So that's good. I mean, it's a start, right?
Awesome.
It's a start for sure. So cool deal. Edward Olive. Let's learn a little bit about Edward Olive this morning.
Sure. So, as they said, Edward Olive, I grew up in Johnston County in Benson. If you're familiar with Benson, people pick on the way that I say Benson.
Used to cruise Benson.
Well, that's where my parents met. So I guess you could say I'm a product of Benson.
Benson Mule Days, right?
Yeah, Benson Mule Days. Yeah. And that kind of pays homage to the farming traditions of the mules and the plows. And it was interesting because I heard Kim Carnegie, the choir last week, said that was what moved her grandfather off the farm. The mules were kind of what kicked him off the farm, and so that technology made a difference. But every September they do enjoy Mule Days, and of course, Marlo, I know you're selling some Mule City specialty feeds at Farmers Ace, and so that's one of the kind of landmarks there in Benson. But I grew up in Benson. I didn't grow up on a farm, oddly enough. I was in a rural area, so there was farms all around me. I worked on some of the local farms growing up. Whether it was loading hay, whether it was, helping, I did a lot of landscaping. There were a lot of different things that I did. But for me, and I did get involved in, we had a small garden and things like that. So I certainly had an appreciation for agriculture and for farming, but just didn't come from a large farm family. And so, it kind of grew from there. I got my passion for agriculture when I got to high school. When I was at South Johnston High School, got involved in FFA and really found my place. That's where I found my passion. I decided I didn't care what I did when I grew up, but I knew I wanted to do something in agriculture, in the world of agriculture.
That's awesome. Yeah. So tell me something, Edward, that you're excited about. What are you excited about today?
Sure. So today, 1 week from today, is our AgFest. So this is going to be our 7th annual AgFest, and we are really excited about that day. We're bringing, and y'all mentioned this a couple weeks ago, 1,200 is always the goal. We always shoot for 1,200 students, high school students and FFA members to come to our campus for the AgFest event. This year we have 1,800 students, and then about 200 more teachers. So we're going to have 2,000 people on this campus.
Wow. What was it last year? Just
14. We had 1,400 last year.
1,800 this year.
Yeah. And that, last year was the first year coming back from after COVID, because of course we took a couple years off because schools weren't allowed to travel. And so last year was our first year back. And so we expected a larger crowd last year, but we figured, that would probably kind of level off and there wouldn't be as much activity, but man, it has come back even stronger.
Yeah.
This year, and that's evolved over years. We started; it was actually a partnership with our student affairs. So, student affairs here on campus had a concert, and we were talking about what's a big draw that we could have to bring students in. We don't have a big football team. We don't have a huge campus, so trying to figure out exactly what can we do. And we said, well, let's team up with a concert. You know, we've already got a concert. They weren't maxing out the arena, where Carnegie Arena is where that used to be held, and they weren't maxing that out. So we said, well, let's partner up. Well, what happened was we had way more of our students and FFA members than public or than even our traditional students on campus.
Yeah.
So the second year, Student Affairs said, you know what, it went so well last year with y'all, we're going to find a different way to interact with our students to let y'all continue on with that. So we started with kind of what we call an AgFest, or a couple of different. So we have organizations that would come out and teach and train, do trainings on different things in ag, and so we were moving massive crowds of 50 or 75 at a time around campus to several different locations. With 2 years ago, the last one, so this would have been 2020, the one right before COVID, 2019. So
I remember we set up the pig barn.
That's right.
At that one,
That's right.
We were in the gym. Yeah.
So we said, well, let's do an ag fair. And so we put everybody in the green, all the booths in the quad in Kemp Commons.
Now, what are you calling the green? Is that
the green area in the middle of campus?
The grass and the sidewalks?
Quad, the Kemp Commons. It's the official name. But we just filled that up with different businesses, different organizations. And let students choose what areas they go to, which booths they visit, and where they go.
Yeah.
And man, that was just outstanding. We had an amazing response from the commodity associations, amazing response from teachers, because students were engaging and they were able to go where they wanted to go. You know, they didn't have to sit in a group of 75 students and hope that they could hear. They could go talk one-on-one with Chad at the Farm Families booth. And so that was always really cool. And so it's continued to grow from there, and that enabled us to grow because we could not grow past. I think we had 1,000. Was about as many as we could handle in those large groups, because that's the facilities that we could move them around to. So
it is a more personal experience when you got groups of kids coming by, and they've got the little friend groups and whatnot. And you get to talk to them one-on-one. You know, you can kind of you had to pull them out of their shell a little bit, right?
And I can remember, you know, me as the first big event that I went to as an FFA member was the Southern Farm Show. And that was the one I had, you know, a group of friends and actually a cousin that I went to middle school with. So going to high school, we always know it's a little different. We were talking earlier with Marlo about going back and reliving her high school days, making a visit.
Leave those in the past.
Yeah, come on.
Not safe for podcasts.
I live those right on back in the club.
You know, I can remember going to the farm show and thinking, I know nobody here. You see all this big equipment. And, you know, it's just kind of intimidating.
Yeah.
But when you get a chance to have that personal interaction and, you know, your ag teacher, your FFA advisors kind of drawing you out, dragging you out and saying, hey, you know, go talk to folks and see what careers are out here. And I think we all know that, you know, I think they're saying now most of the public is about 4 generations removed from the farm. So, you know, that ag literacy, that understanding of careers and all that is just getting less and less. So this is a great way for students, whether they're coming from a farm, whether they're in a rural county or an urban county, to come and learn about different career options, different opportunities in agriculture across the state, really across the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I remember, like, growing up, I was going to be a vet.
Like you were locked and loaded.
Oh, yeah. I was going to be a veterinarian. That's what I was going to do, work with my dad's vet every summer. Went off to Peace College, took one, you know, biochemistry class, and realized really quick I was not
that's a chemistry
going to be a vet. It was an organic chemistry class. I will never forget it. That I realized extremely in about 2 days that I was not going to be a veterinarian. But I was thinking in my mind, and I think a lot of students that go into ag have this assumption that they're going to get into vet school, or that, you know, and not saying that they're not, but it's really competitive. And, you know, I think there's a lot of students with an animal science degree need to know what other options they have. You know, and we talked a little bit about being removed from the farm. We talk about that a lot in this podcast. And, you know, ag communications, I feel like, is such a necessity right now.
It's becoming more of a necessity, absolutely.
And I mean, it doesn't the university have a degree in that? I mean, y'all are one of the first actually to have an ag communications degree. Can you talk about that?
Sure, absolutely. So we do. We started what we call a Bachelor of Arts. So it's actually an online program in agricultural communications. But the neat thing is that our students that are traditional students on campus can still pick up those courses or even take that major. They can take the traditional ag courses in a seated form and then take those ag communication courses online. But it is really a good pairing because we're seeing so many students that have an interest in social media, in marketing and public relations and communications. I know, again, one of the earlier podcasts, you talked about Marissa and her background in communications, and it's key. And it's even more key now because students and the general public are removed and don't understand all the ins and outs. So having somebody that can articulate, especially somebody that understands. I mean, there's lots of folks that get degrees in marketing and communications and come into the ag field, but having someone that's trained in agriculture in an agricultural education and then having that add-on of ag communications just is really cool. And so that's one we just graduated our first student in that program in the fall, and so in December. And, looking forward to seeing that continue to take off. I know you had you talked a lot about sweet potatoes last time. That was actually the first internship that our ag communications student did was, or the first one that graduated that I just mentioned.
Was with Kim?
Yep. Well, no, with the commission. So she worked with the Sweet Potato Commission, kind of as a communications intern with Michelle Granger and their team. So that was a really cool experience. And and then of course we always send students to the North Carolina convention, and we also hosted the national convention this year, Sweet Potato Convention, down in Wilmington. So we sent students to help with both of those, and that was pretty neat to see it come full circle and to see them put what they learn in the classroom into action.
Yeah, and honestly, I think as social media obviously is growing and growing and growing every day, and I think that with the transparency that people want to see behind food production, that farmers and farms now are going to have to play a role in social media, period.
That's right.
I mean, you're not going to see my 68-year-old dad on social media. You're just not. But it's up to these younger generations that are getting more involved in agriculture and coming back to the farm and realizing how important that is to the promotion, not only of selling their whatever commodity they're raising on the farm, or and then an educational standpoint. I mean, I just think there's going to be a lot of growth for somebody that wants a career in agriculture to really explore that sector of communications, marketing.
We
and anything really. I mean, there's just so much you can do in ag that's not working on a farm. You know what I mean?
Yesterday we had Dr. Farmer's intro to animal science class at my farm, and we come by the chute that I had pulled out. I said, hey, we got to get a picture for social media. So we got everybody on our loading chute and took a picture. So
very nice.
I mean, people
you got to show.
They want transparency.
Yeah.
The consumers and buyers, they want to see what's going on out here.
When I tell you, I had a conversation the other day with one of our faculty members that isn't even in ag, from one of the other departments on campus. And he was talking about the impact of social media. They say he's in criminal justice, but the impact of social media that they see on some of these high-profile cases.
Wow!
The proof goes out the window. It's all about that emotional response. It's all about what Marlo shared it, so it must be true. Wow, I'm going to share it, and then before you know, it spread like wildfire, whether it was true or not.
Yeah, there's a difference between feelings and facts, and that especially in a sector like criminal justice, but definitely agriculture.
Absolutely.
I mean, your feelings don't outweigh the facts of what's best for the animal, or how you raise your row crops.
For sure. So tell me, Edward, what is your role here at the University of Mount Olive?
Sure. So I'm director for the Lois G. Britt Agribusiness Center. And Lois Britt, we need to talk about her. She's probably one of the first bacon buddies, right?
She's a pioneer for women in agriculture in the state. Absolutely.
And I texted Ed Emery, because Ed Emery came right in behind Lois Britt. And I said, was she the first? Because I always thought she was the first female extension director. He said she wasn't the first, but she was the first in an ag county, in a county like Duplin County. She was in Duplin County. She was I believe she was a family consumer science agent, and then became a extension director. So she was the leader for that office. And apparently they had some others, but she was the first in a major ag county to be a female, and that's a big deal. I mean, you think about
she's a pioneer
yes.
for a woman like me sitting here on a podcast talking about agriculture.
Yes, and then she went on to work with Murphy Brown. I think in 1990 she went on to work with Murphy Brown and was special assistant for Wendell Murphy. And so she's had a long history in agriculture and in hog production. But so the center is named in her memory. In 2007, we started the center in 2002, and then in 2007, it was named and dedicated in her memory. And so I serve as director for that center. We do a lot of outreach for farmers, for community members, for students all over the state, mainly in eastern North Carolina, but all over the state. And, it was really the impetus for the ag program here at the University of Mount Olive. So, like I said, back in 2002, there were a group of folks that came together and said, look, we're right here in Mount Olive. And if you are not familiar where Mount Olive is on a map, we're in the southern part of Wayne County, which is, we're about 5 miles from the Sampson County line and about 5 or 6 miles from the Duplin County line. And Sampson and Duplin always go back and forth between the top ag cash receipts counties in North Carolina. So those are two major counties, two major ag counties in the state. So these folks came together, visionary leaders, and they said, doesn't it make sense for us to have some kind of tie-in with agriculture? And so they created the agribusiness degree and then created the agribusiness director. And that was Mr. Don Scott, Dr. Don Scott. A lot of you probably know Howard Scott. He was extension director in Wayne County. Mm-hmm. So Dr. Don Scott is Mr. Howard's late brother. And he established the center and provided they were doing QuickBooks training and those kinds of things for farmers. And then they had a few students, local students, that came in and said, I think I want a degree in ag and I want to stay right here close to home.
Yeah.
So what are some of the degrees you can get through the agriculture center with Mount Olive? Sure.
So we have, I'm going to try to go from oldest to what we have now.
Yeah.
We have agribusiness.
No, you don't have to go in chronological order.
No. But it's easier for me to keep it in mind because
I understand.
Back to me a little bit, right? Because it's all about me. It's all about me, right? But I came as a student in 2008. I graduated from South Johnston, as I mentioned, and then came to the University of Mount Olive as a student in 2008. And Dr. Maddox, our dean, started here in 2007. So I was the second class that she taught. But so I've seen a lot, I've been a big part of seeing a lot of things that have happened. So that's why it's easier for me just to start at the beginning and go through on the degrees. But we started with agribusiness. Then we added agricultural education, which is the degree that I chose and well, I went through all of them. We had 3 degree options at that time.
Don't we all?
I tell you, I just floundered a little bit.
I don't even have a degree in ag.
Decided, I just don't know quite what I want to do. And so I started in ag business thinking that it's going to be money. And I, like I said, not coming from a farm, I wanted to make it rain. Make it rain. I wanted a little more agricultural knowledge. And so I switched into ag ed thinking, hey, maybe I want to teach. Maybe I want to be an ag teacher.
Yeah.
And after I did that, I had an internship with Extension, and I did some additional research and working with ag, and decided that really my passion, we called it outreach and development. So kind of communications and getting out and doing things. So agribusiness, agricultural education. We now have degrees in animal science, and plant science, environmental natural resources, agricultural communications and leadership, agricultural production systems, and we also, interestingly enough, you mentioned this morning a pre-vet, a veterinary bioscience degree.
Nice.
Because we've seen, and of course we've got additional within the School of Agriculture and Biological Sciences. We've got degrees in biology and biotechnology and biomedical. But we've seen such an interest in veterinary science.
I thought I was going to be a veterinarian.
I did too in 7th grade.
It
didn't last long.
Yeah, I was going to be Dr. Marlowe Ivy, large animal vet.
Dr. Marlowe Ivy.
Like a TV show?
Yes. I mean,
I can do ag education. I mean, when I have the students come to our farm, I enjoy that. I enjoy connecting with these young folks, and I know Dr. Glennon and all your staff here enjoy it too.
Absolutely.
I know they're probably frustrating sometimes, but
I agree. I enjoy it.
And when you look at, of course, agricultural education, and that has always been a popular degree.
Yeah.
And that's kept us close to the ag teachers. That's kept us in front of those ag teachers and students. So we are able to keep up on what the biggest trends are and what is going on in ag ed. But our students are going to spend, all of our degrees have an internship component. I mentioned the internship with Sweet Potato Commission. All of our degrees have an internship component, and for our ag ed students, that internship component is student teaching. So they actually spend a semester where they're the teacher.
Oh, wow.
They are in the classroom. They are applying everything that they've learned throughout their college career, and that's where the rubber meets the road. And they do have a cooperating teacher that works with them to kind of supervise, and of course Dr. Edwards or one of our other ag ed faculty will make some visits to talk to them. But I mean it's kind of daunting, when you're 3 years older or 4 years older than the folks that you're in the class, and you're supposed to be keeping control of 30 of them.
And you want to be their buddy too.
Absolutely. Yeah. You want to be their bacon buddy, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And so it is, but that's a big deal. But that's what we pride ourselves on here at the University of Mount Olive in the School of Agriculture and Biological Sciences is that hands-on, that active learning where students are able to learn in the classroom, but then they take it and apply what they learned in an internship. In a lab setting at the student farms. We haven't talked about that yet. I'd love to tell you about the student farms.
Share with me some success stories, though, of kids that have graduated from the school.
I guess you are.
Absolutely.
Well, look at that.
We got
Yeah.
But I mean, where are these kids finding jobs at?
Sure. And so it's interesting because...
Or young adults, I should say.
That's okay. We struggle with that too. But so 52% of our students come from Eastern North Carolina, which is, when I was here, I was the outlier. I was coming from Johnston County. Everybody else was Wayne County, Sampson County, Duplin County, Lenoir County. But now 52% of our students are coming from Eastern North Carolina. But the interesting thing is 69% of our graduates are staying in Eastern North Carolina. So those folks that are coming in from out of state or from Western North Carolina or whatever are falling in love with what we have here.
How can you not fall in love with what we got here?
That's right.
I mean, this is God's country.
Absolutely.
We definitely got the best barbecue.
We got the best pickles.
And the best pickles.
We got the best
pickles there. So what more could you want? But so our students, we've got a lot that are teaching, a lot that are in agricultural education. We've got some that are working with USDA. That's another big one. We've got some that are working with agribusinesses. A lot have gone back to their own family farm. We do have a lot of students that come from a family farm. We've got some that have created their own business. One of the first ones that I think about, there's a young lady from northern Wayne County up around Fremont, and she came and her passion was flowers. She wanted to open a flower farm. And now guess what? She's got a flower farm. She's got a farm stand. And she's making it work. I mean, she came in with that drive and that passion, and went out and made it happen. And like I said, we've got others that have had internships and opportunities with commodity associations. We've got some that are working with farm credit. So, I mean, it's all over the board. But right at 100% of our students get jobs within 6 months of graduation. So that's the other thing, when you talk about college, especially when you listen to some of the folks that are talking now. And I'm not one to say college is for everybody. I mean, that's a choice that folks make. But we pride ourselves on the fact that students get jobs. It's not it's not the case where, what am I going to do with my degree after I graduate? The world of agriculture is full of opportunities for folks that graduate with or without a degree to find a career.
I was asking one of the students on our farm yesterday, I was like, what do you want to do when you graduate? And before I could even get out of my mouth, he was like, farm credit.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
He knew.
Farm credit, you've got an employee coming.
Yep.
There you go.
So where do you see like the university in 10 years? Like what is your I know that's such a loaded question.
Okay, let's do 5 years.
Well, and so that's what I was
where's the future of the university?
So and I'll tell you this because it's been 6 years ago now. The president at that time said we want a strategic plan. We need a strategic plan. And so
since they always work out like you want to.
Exactly, right. But you got to have a vision. You got to know where you're headed.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
And so he came to Dr. Maddox and said, give me a 5-year plan. So we sat down and we were hashing stuff out. We had this strategic plan. We had a graphic created. And when we got to the end of it, we said, that's 3 years. And that's about as far as we can go right now. You know, that's because we are detailed. You know, we've got it all planned out right down to how many vehicles we're going to need to sustain another farm. But, you know, I'm going to talk first about some of the things that we got coming up. So we got, as I mentioned, the student farm, the Carnegie Student Farm, the original
talk about
farm.
The student farms. That's really cool.
And as a part of that farm yesterday, actually, we did a ribbon cutting for our newest building, our newest facility, which is the North Carolina Tobacco Trust Fund Commission Agricultural Commodity Building. And so we've got 2 walk-in coolers in there. We got a washing, sorting area for produce. We've got a 63-acre farm that our students are helping us to sustain, that our students are helping to maintain. They're helping us to plant and harvest the crops that we have on that farm. And, you know, we got to the point where we were like, what are we going to do with it? You know, we don't have anywhere to store this. And in fact, as I was talking through yesterday, really the impetus for this, we were talking with the cafeteria on campus and said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if our strawberries from the farm or our sweet corn from the farm ended up in the cafeteria line?
That would be awesome.
And so they said, well, that's great, but you got to be GAP certified and you got to go through the third party that we work with, that we source our stuff from. Yeah. And that's how it is. I mean, when you're working with, and again, this is something that probably a lot of people don't understand. When you go in a grocery store, when you go to a restaurant, it just shows up. But there's a lot of things that food goes through and a lot of processes that happen to enable that to happen. And so when you're working with those companies like ours here in the dining hall, you know, they've got to have their liability covered. They've got to make sure that they've got those steps taken care of. So that ag and commodity building will be an awesome step in that direction. That'll give us a place to provide storage. But the newest thing that it's because 63 acres isn't going to fill it up. So that also gives us an opportunity to work with local farmers to say, hey, you bring us your asparagus or your grapes or your strawberries or whatever, and let us be a facility that can hold those and kind of a food hub type thing. So we're planning to do CSA, which is community supported agriculture, like a subscription box type thing that folks can purchase or subscribe to. Planning to do some wholesale, you know, where folks will, or a company will come with a truck, load the produce up, and then haul it to those distributors that I was talking about. And also some retail, working with farmers markets and things like that. So we're excited about that. That's probably the first step in that direction. And right now, Laurel Martin is, she was one of the first science professors. That
I've heard my dad talk about her
at the Mount Olive College. And we didn't realize until a few years ago that she left our family farm to the University of Mount Olive. And Shady Grove Road, if y'all are familiar with that, Shady Grove Road, just west of Mount Olive. And so we've had ownership of it since 2007 and have rented it out. And one of the vice presidents came to us a few years back and said, what do you think we need to do with this? And we said, we need to be using it, you know. We need to find a way to use it. It's 85 acres.
Wow.
And
awesome.
So the plan for that is right now at the Carnegie Farm, we have a 1 acre certified organic unit. Not because we feel that organic, I mean, it's a choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just as we've talked about in the past, but it's important for our students to understand.
To learn about it.
Yeah, and understand what it takes. You know, what are the certification processes? What's the paperwork that you have to go through to get that? What can you use? What can't you use? And so that's why we stopped with 1 acre because, you know, that's about as much as we felt like we could handle. And then the rest is conventional. But we've got about 6 acres in horticultural crops. So that would be your strawberries, your blackberries, your blueberries, that kind of stuff, as well as the annual crops of, you know, tomatoes and corn and whatever. And then you've got 6 acres of livestock. So we've got sheep and goats. We've got a couple donkeys. And then we have some chickens. So we do an egg program. We've got an egg program, an egg CSA actually right now where our faculty and staff are signed up and say, hey, I want a dozen eggs every week or every other week. And they get delivered here to campus, and they pick them up on Friday afternoon. So that's a big hit.
I'm guessing Dr. Glennon is in charge of the goats.
She is. Yep, absolutely. Dr. Glennon is the goat lady. Ain't no doubt about it. And they're actually kidding. I'm not kidding, but you know, when goats have babies, those are called kids, and that process is called kidding. So our goats have just started kidding We had 2 last Saturday. It never happens at a perfect time.
No.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So last Saturday we had our Trojan First Day where all of our new students for the fall are coming. And guess what? Just happened to show up on that day when Dr. Glennon went and checked the goats after the event were 2 babies.
Oh,
So she got those closed up so they can get to know the mama and they can enjoy mama's milk for a little bit. And then we'll turn them out with everybody else after they figure out who's who. And then we've got about 10 acres that are row crop. So that's a combination: sweet potatoes, peanuts, which we use as horticultural crops, but that it is in more of a row crop fashion. And then we've actually got a new professor, Dr. Scott Tilley, who's working on some corn research plots. So he's actually looking at tillage methods and cover crops and what that means. So we're looking forward to actually having traditional row crops this year and harvesting that. But back to the Shady Grove Farm, the reason I went down that road, the Shady Grove Farm will allow us to move those 6 acres of livestock that we have on the Carnegie Farm to 85 acres at the Shady Grove Farm, at the Martin Farm. And so we're excited about that. We can increase the acreage. We've shied away from doing any large scale like cattle or things like that because we just don't have 6 acres. You're not going to get a whole lot.
Yeah.
You usually figure 1 to an acre and a half per head on cattle, and so that just wasn't feasible. We do a bottle feeding project. We do get dairy steers because steers don't really, you don't on a dairy, you don't really have a need for the steers. You're looking for the milk. And so we were able to get those. Our students bottle feed those, and then we do raise those up for beef. And so that's been an interesting one, but hopefully we'll be able to grow it into more of a commercial herd at the other farm. So we're excited about that, excited about moving that, about the buildings that'll be there. And that facility, again, everything that we do from the very start, going back to 2002, is all about community. It's all about students. It's all about, what can we do to provide opportunities? And just like I said with the other building, with the ag and commodity building, we're not going to be able to use every square inch of it. So why not find ways to partner with others in the community that can help us to utilize it to its full capacity? So we'll be doing the same thing with the livestock facility at the Shady Grove Farm, finding ways to work with 4-H or work with some of these folks that have got an interest in youth livestock. The long-term goal on that is to actually have an egg processing, egg handling facility where we can grow that to more than, right now we're getting, I don't know, maybe 20 dozen a week, something like that. But we want to grow that even more and continue filling that niche.
And the Dr. Maddox building out there has some classroom space
That's right.
in it. It's really nice.
Yeah, yes, very
it's
nice.
Really nice.
Yes.
If I was going back to school right now, I'd go to.
Certainly.
Yeah, and
I'd be at Mount Olive for sure.
So that we can thank our friends at Hogslat for that. Hogslat had the naming rights for that building, and
what an appropriate name, right?
They recognize the impact that Dr. Maddox has had on agriculture and certainly on the university. And they said, we wanted to have your name on it. And she said, I don't know about that. But guess what? It's got
I
her
know.
name
She's
on
so
it.
humble. I love that about her.
The Hogslat folks, too, are
they
great
do a great
folks.
job. They give so back to the community.
I tell you, Hogslats, we use Hogslats for, obviously, to put hogs on, but we use it for a lot of other stuff, too. I made a bridge out of one.
We've got some at the entrance to the greenhouse at the farm. It works real nice. It doesn't, you doesn't, no matter how much you water the greenhouse, it doesn't get muddy.
You can make a dock. People make docks out of them.
Camp Don Lee has a big dock.
A big dock. I think Seafair and Seagull too.
Speaking of Hogslat, so my dad actually worked with Hogslat in his earlier years, but I had an opportunity to come back and work with Hogslat as an internship, as an intern at Mount Olive. I worked at the store in Goldsboro.
Okay.
And, so, man, I got to meet.
Spent a lot of time.
I probably saw Marlo.
We love you, Alice.
You definitely did.
Alice and Blake Warren, if y'all remember.
Blake.
Man,
He's
Blake
so funny.
Yes.
These are all Hogslat employees that are great.
We're getting. They're great. Hogslat helps us on our farms a lot.
And I got to learn a lot about the hog industry, about the poultry industry, about how heavy those pumps are, and all kinds of stuff. But it was really good to get down and understand the ins and outs of of hog production, or at least on the maintenance side of it.
Man, this has been very informative. Thank you, Amber, for coming. Anything else? Any more questions you have, Marlo?
No,
any final something we got to know about the University of Mount Olive?
Man, something you got to know about the university. Again, we are a private university, so it is a private university, the only private university in North Carolina that has an ag program. So that's always been exciting. And like I said, a lot of times private universities get a rap for being expensive. And there is, of course, it's going to be a little more expensive than a public university because they're not sponsored or paid for through General Assembly and through tax money quite as much. But we do work hard to make our tuition affordable. And we have almost 100% of our students come in with financial needs. So we've got a lot of folks that have scholarships and opportunities. And we're always open to partnerships. So if anybody is interested in partnering with the University of Mount Olive for an event, for scholarship, for whatever. And so let me mention one thing, since we're on Bacon Buddies, and we all know our friends at Smithfield, right?
Yep.
Smithfield has approached us, and we're looking at kind of jump-starting a scholarship program to help keep folks that come from Eastern North Carolina here in Eastern North Carolina, provide them an internship, and then hopefully we'll bring them back into the fold as Smithfield employees after they graduate. So we're really excited about that. So that gets us through about 3 years. We'll have to,
we'll have another podcast for the next 3 years after that.
Yeah, but thank y'all for having me.
Thank you.
Oh, and I brought some stuff.
Oh,
so we talked
I love
this. We talked about, Chad.
Awesome.
I got
all right.
a hat for Chad.
Yep. Rock it today.
Yep, there you go. And I left, all the cool kids are leaving the tags
on.
The
tag is on.
You just leave that tag on there if you want to.
That is fresh.
Marlo, here's your AgFest t-shirt.
Yes, I love yellow too.
Yes. This is called Yellow Haze.
Oh man, I love that.
And so all of our students will get a t-shirt. All of our visitors will have a t-shirt next year.
We need to have our Bacon Buddies logo on the back next year.
Yeah, well, bring it on. We'll be glad to bring y'all in as a big sponsor.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank y'all for what you do for agriculture and Eastern North Carolina and the pork industry. Thank y'all.
Well, we got to have our North Carolina Farm Fact time for the end of our podcast today. And we've got to go. You want to read it, Marlo, or you want?
I'll let you to read
it. Okay.
My dyslexia gets in the way now. You're
and
better.
And this is something we talked about with.
But this is a great fact.
This is a great fact. Okay, here we go. North Carolina Farm Fact for the day. The North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services operates 4 farmers markets in the state, located in Asheville, Charlotte, Raleigh, and Greensboro. They also support other farmers markets with grants and marketing assistance.
Can I give you another fun fact?
Yeah.
So my first public job in agriculture, I worked for a couple farmers at the State Farmers Market in Raleigh. Growing up in Benson, I was only about 30 minutes from the State Farmers Market. So, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed, working with consumers, but that is just a huge operation and opportunity for folks to meet their farmers, to have an opportunity to talk with them one-on-one and to learn a lot.
And the little restaurant beside.
Yes.
Farmers market's always
they got the restaurant, and they've got the seafood restaurant, and the little grill in there too. So you can go and get lost all day and never go hungry.
That's awesome. Thanks again, Edward, for being with us. As always, it's great to be with my bacon buddy Marlo here on the podcast.
I love you, boys.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody, on Bacon Buddies, where
everything's on the table.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.